In this lesson, we will review how we in Maderistica approach functionality. As we saw in the previous lesson, the main function is to be structurally stable. With that, we already have much of the functionality resolved. Functionality in furniture is not such a complex issue, and often it's about correctly defining the size of the furniture. There are standards. For example, a chair is going to be between 45 and 50 centimeters high. A table or desk will be around 75 centimeters. There are standards for the size of a 6-person table or 8-person, the sizes of kitchen cabinets, etc. To learn these dimensions, just take a tape and start measuring the furniture around you. You will find a certain range. The dimensions of a chair, armchair, or coffee table are not random. It can be a good starting source to start with. If you are interested, I can show you a book. This book is also commonly used by architects. Architect's Data by Ernest Neufeld. This book is a classic with architects. He was a German engineer who took the time to measure everything, from cars, people, furniture. You can find the measurements of everything. That is why it is very useful in architecture. Maybe not so much in cabinet making, because you can always measure your own chair. But if you design an airport, you can't measure airplanes. It is very practical. That is why it is a highly referenced book. We will be able to find the standard dimensions for working heights, if we work sitting down or standing. The width of the top cabinet in a kitchen so that it's fully accessible. The same with office furniture, to store files, books, etc. You will find the size of a pigeon, a duck, a chicken coop, a horse, everything. As I say, for furniture, maybe it is not necessary. But I want you to understand that he called it Architect's Data, and his book basically is about dimensions. I want you to understand that these dimensions are parameters related to the human body. They are not arbitrary. The height of the table, chair, they have to do with the range in which human beings move. It has its origin. It has that explanation, making it comfortable for us to sit at a desk and spend hours at it. It's about the correct function of that piece of furniture. Mastering the issue of dimensions is very convenient. We can go from this piece of furniture, that could be a rack, to what could be a desk, by modifying the length of the legs and the size of the body. It could be a shelf, or a chest of drawers. So with the same model, the same technique, the same solution, just changing the dimensions of the elements, we can satisfy different functions. It's that important to master this issue. We can make a very comfortable or very uncomfortable desk with a few extra centimeters, a table where we can't cross our legs. It is an important issue that you need to consider. Now, there are no rules, and the diversity of carpentry projects forces you to be attentive in every project you do. The issue of dimensions is very important when, in a market saturated with generic furniture, with generic dimensions, the role of the cabinet maker begins to be bespoke work. And as the word says, it is to develop projects for specific needs, specific customers, and specific dimensions. Basically, it has to do with paying close attention, as I was saying, to these aspects to solve them in each project. It is easier to explain it with a concrete example. I'll tell you about a piece of furniture that we developed for our apartment. It involved many variables, and the subject of dimensions was important. In the apartment, you open the access door, and to the right there is a niche, a space about 50 to 60 centimeters deep by 3 meters empty. And the living room is on the other side. The idea from the beginning was a piece of furniture, but not a closet, because it was a bit invasive, but we didn't want such a cold image of a closet in the living room. There is a requirement. The other thing is that we had bought a full-size digital piano, and we wanted to include it in the cabinet. And the piano has a requirement. The height is very important. So you sit on the chair with your elbow at 90 degrees and measure the distance from the wrist to the floor, and that's the height of the piano. And from that, we order all the requirements. This is the result. Generally speaking, it is not a closet. It has a large storage capacity. We managed to fit in our dear piano. If you look at the module, so the height of the piano and its size force the rest of the design. This module and the size of that drawer and these have to do with the space after measuring the piano in detail. In addition, of course, you have to measure the thickness of the panels, because the piano was retractable, the thickness of the material, and so on. The thickness of the baseboard is also taken into account, and all those elements. The cabinet also houses all the instruments. We have a lot: bass, guitar, trumpet, clarinet. It's all tucked in there. It goes unnoticed. It is very neat. We also accommodated a lot of odds and ends. Those are drawers for Francisca's materials, and these for my daughter's stuff. Space for the coat rack. When we got home, we'd get our stuff off. Drawer for hats, gloves, bandanas for the girls and us. The bag drawer. Space to store the changing backpack, which we also have. The plant even had a spot from the beginning, because this piece of furniture has such an important presence in our routine that we wanted it to be nice. We wanted it to be a little green. All those aspects are involved when solving a project. This shows how a piece of furniture, which is embracing a multiplicity of uses, can fulfill them all, and you can make it coexist in a harmonious way and achieving its main objective. That's important. That's what Venturi said. It is similar to the dog corridor, and then we added some grooved elements. I also worked with the grain. The grain of the wood is diagonal, also the drawers. They are details to make it more pleasing to the eye, but they are secondary to the functionality. I'm going to leave you some recommendations to tackle any project with a client or a personal project. The first thing I recommend is designing with a tape in hand. Sometimes we want to measure something, and I suggest that rather than doing it from the number, you do it from the size, so to speak. I want a leg like this. I take my tape and do what I want the leg to be, and I see what number I get, 22 centimeters. Same for a drawer. I think this size is fine. I take the tape and see what number I get. I don't start from the number. I see it after I define the size. So next to my computer, when designing, I have the tape. Another recommendation that can help you at times is knowing some body dimensions. For example, the palm of my hand is 10 centimeters. The span is 23. 23 is a fifth of a board for me. It's fantastic. From the tip of the index finger to the elbow, it's 46, which is 2 hand spans. Sometimes we will not have a tape, and we can resort to this, which is super simple. It is also important to know what measures a meter. In this case, from the tip of my middle finger as far as my shoulder, it is a meter. These we know are 20 centimeters. These are 46, same as this. It is an exercise that can help you. Another important recommendation, especially when designing for another, is talking directly with the customer. Sometimes the commission is simple. You only need very basic information. But in more complex projects, one prefers to call on the phone and spend a few minutes talking, because you understand issues that the customer does not show you right off the bat. A good chat will allow you to identify even what kind of storage is more correct. Storing files is not the same as storing books or pencils. So we will be able to choose, for example, types of drawers, swing doors, sliding doors, or shelves. A good example is a desk that could have shallow drawers for pencils and pads, notebooks, deeper drawers for folders and things to store. It can have a sliding door if we have files. In a high, deep compartment, we can hide files racks and shelves for elements that have to be accessible. Each of these solutions will have to do with a specific use, and many times clients will tell you that they want to store things or will not specify. A chat can clear that up. Another element is to make precise measurements of key objects. For example, the piano that I showed you. It is the piece that defines the rest of the project. It happens a lot with commissions of cabinets for audio equipment, knowing the size of the speakers, also with all electronic equipment. I ask for the dimensions. And another recommendation is to consider slack. If the amplifier is 40 centimeters, I will not make a 40 centimeter compartment. I'm going to make it 41, even 42. With electronics, it is good to have ventilation, but it will also allow me to comfortably put in and take out the elements. It is not enough that a mattress fits. You have to be able to tuck the bedding under the mattress, and that implies allowing for a certain slack. 1 centimeter makes the difference between a bed that works well and something that is uncomfortable. Logically, we have to master the general dimensions of the material we use. In the case of plywood, 1.20 by 2.40. In the case of raw wood, it is normally 3.20 meters, that kind of thing. It has happened to us that we are commissioned a desk of 2.50 meters. The board is 2.40 meters. It's going to force us to add a piece of material, and it will be noticeable. It is good to clarify that, if it necessarily has to be 2.50, or if with 2.40 it will work well. Most times, it is just a reference for a large desk. The same goes for depths. You can't get two 60-centimeter pieces out of a 1.20 sheet, because every time we cut, we will lose material. So we prefer to work with another module, which would be 59. Reducing it to 59 normally, it's not relevant for the customer, but for the production process it is. These recommendations have to do with experience. As you become familiar with the dimensions of the elements, it will get easier to use them constantly. You have to take it into account. You also need to consider the stability of the furniture. Normally, we will put in storage furniture the large compartments below so that the heaviest elements are in the lower part, to improve its stability. There is a documentary, I'll leave you the Netflix link, that reviews the issue of some IKEA furniture, specifically a chest of drawers that was very narrow and very high, and that, due to a design problem, caused accidents and the death of several children because it was too slender, too tall. So if you open the drawers, it would tip forward. It has to do with the quality of the material, that is getting lighter than what you store in them. Take it into account, especially if we make higher shelves or elements, and these elements are thinner. We should bolt them to the wall and hopefully leave the weight as low as possible. Lower the center of gravity. Another very important recommendation, especially for wall or large-scale projects, check the environment. This means checking for plugs, switches, lamps, baseboards, etc., or any type of element, radiators, etc. It is very unpleasant to install a piece of furniture and realize you missed the baseboard and the library is 5 centimeters off the wall. Last but not least, accessibility and flexibility. What do I mean? Especially in large projects, take into account the accessibility. That is, ask if it will fit into an elevator. If it's a house, if there's a window. Sometimes it is large and you have to install it in a house, but the room is at the back, past the hall. And you have to go in, and it can be a disaster. We have designed bookcases based on the size of the elevator because it was the 25th floor and we couldn't take the stairs. What we do is propose to the client that we divide it into modules and work with smaller modules. If they want a 4-meter rack, we make 2 of 2 meters. It will be easier to manipulate it and put it in its final spot. It will allow you to work more comfortably, and it is more flexible because eventually the client today has a 4-meter wall to put it. Tomorrow they can put it in L or separate it because there are no 2 pieces. That is flexibility. So you not only have to worry about the furniture. As I say, environment and accessibility. In the next lesson, we will look at the aesthetic aspect.